Hello, and welcome to the Wire Podcast, a podcast where we discuss all things sports. I'm Ryan McCrary, and on today's episode, we're going to start by talking about the Detroit Pistons being upset by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second round. I want to focus on where the Pistons go from here, what changes they need to make to the roster moving forward. I also want to talk about Spurs Thunder Game 1. That game was absolutely fantastic. That series got off to an insane start, so I'm going to break down the first game of that series. And then after that, I want to talk about Knicks Cavs Game 1, which was insane as well. The Game 1s of the conference finals have been absolutely incredible, so I want to take a deep dive into both of those games. And that's what we have on tap for today's episode. I hope you're excited. I know I am. And let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's kick off today's episode by talking about Game 7 between the Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers. As I mentioned in the intro, the Cavs upset the Pistons in the second round. I want to talk about how that series ended, as well as where the Pistons are going to go from here, what they should do with their lineup moving forward, what they should do with their roster as they head into the offseason. This was a very interesting playoffs for the Detroit Pistons. They didn't play all that well, despite winning 60 games during the regular season and being the top seed in the Eastern Conference. They went to 7 games in each of the 2 series they appeared in, and of course, they lost to the Cavs. And Game 7 was rough for the Pistons. They lost 125-94 in that final game, and it was an absolute massacre. Cavs were dominant, despite being on the road, and the Pistons did not look good at all in that final game. It was really rough for the Pistons. You had a bad Cade performance. He struggled a lot in that game. Wasn't doing much as an offensive creator. He had like 13 points in that game. I'm pulling up the box score here. Yeah, he had 13 points, shot 5 for 16 from the field, only had 5 assists. Just not a very particularly good offensive performance from him. You also got poor outings from Ausar Thompson, Jalen Duren, and Tobias Harris. All 3 of those guys played pretty poorly in that Game 7, and they also struggled defensively. They gave up 125 points, which is bad enough, but then you look at, they gave up 20 points to 4 players: Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, Jarrett Allen, and Sam Merrill. That is not good at all. So their defense struggled a lot in Game 7, and the Cavs were just really good in this final game. Donovan Mitchell's creation and shot making were very impressive in this game. And the box score reflects that. He had 26 points and 8 assists on 45.5% shooting from the field. Wasn't like elite in terms of efficiency, but he had an assist rate of 44.7%, which is really good. And the Cavs offense was efficient when he was on the floor. And we saw him, he had 6 3-point attempts. Just a very solid offensive performance from Donovan Mitchell. And then Evan Mobley, he was really good across the board in this game. He had 21 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. That's insane. He was super efficient. His efficiency was very, very good. He was crashing the glass, especially on defense. Provided a bit of playmaking. He also was really active on defense. This was a great performance from Mobley. He was probably the Cavs' best player in this game. And then, Jarrett Allen was great as a play finisher, putting 23 points on the board. And then Sam Merrill had a big day as a shooter off the bench, pouring in 23 points as the 6th man. So, the Cavs, they were great in this game, and they were able to really dominate. I mean, it was ugly for the Pistons here. And the Cavs dominated in every single area. And so they were able to win big on the road which is very impressive. Blowing out the number 1 seed in your conference on the road in a Game 7 is insane. That is not normal. Not normal at all. And now the Pistons have a lot of changes to make moving forward. I think it's very clear they cannot bring back this roster looking the same as it does now. They've got to make some changes. I think one of the biggest issues with this team is a lack of playmakers, a lack of ball handlers. They put a lot on Cade Cunningham's plate, and I simply don't think he's good enough to handle it. And I'm not saying that he's not a good player, or that he didn't have a great season, or that he wasn't good in this year's playoffs. I don't agree with any of that. I think he was great this season. I think he was really good in the playoffs. I think he's a very good offensive player. One of the best playmakers we have in this league. But the fact is, he does have some serious issues, especially on offense. I think his handle is too loose at times. I think he can be too careless with the ball. That's why his turnover rate in the playoffs has been really high throughout his career, and it was really high this year. And he's going to generate a lot of assists. He's going to create a lot of open looks for his teammates. But the turnovers are hard to swallow. It's an issue. I also don't think he's a good enough three-point shooter at the moment. That's an area where he's got to get better. And he's a good scorer and a good shot creator, but I don't think he is a great scorer. I think his efficiency as a scorer leaves a bit to be desired. And so I like Cade Cunningham a lot, but I don't view him in the same way that I view a guy like Luka Doncic, which I know is a high bar. I get that. But when I think of really good heliocentric offensive players, I think of guys like Doncic, like Jalen Brunson, for example. I don't think of Cade Cunningham. I really think the Pistons need to get a secondary ball handler who can take the creation load off of Cunningham a little bit. I think he really needs that. If he's going to take that next step forward and become a truly elite player, a guy that can compete for MVPs, I think that needs to happen. Right now, there's just too much on his plate offensively, and I think he just has a few issues offensively that are always going to hold him back in the role that he currently fills. Because he's filling a really difficult role for the Pistons. Being a heliocentric, high-usage offensive creator is very difficult. And Cunningham just has to get a little bit better for him to really shine in that role consistently and in the playoffs. And I think to help offset, the cost of filling a difficult role like that, the Pistons need to help him out a bit and give him a teammate who can handle the ball at a decent level and create shots for both himself and their teammates. I think they also they got to figure out a proper lineup construction to overcome Ausar Thompson's lack of shooting. I think that's a big issue. The Pistons were amazing defensively this year, in large part because Ausar Thompson was amazing on that end of the floor. But he's pretty raw offensively. He can't really shoot from the perimeter, and that creates some spacing issues for the Pistons. They've got to solve that. You don't want to get rid of Ausar Thompson. You can't do that. You need him because his defense is so good. But you've got to figure out a way to not let his lack of shooting completely warp the floor spacing for this offense. So that's something they got to think about. They also have to consider what they need to do with Jalen Duren, because he was horrible in the playoffs. I'm going to be blunt. He just wasn't good. And I think even he would admit that. He played a lot worse during the playoffs than he did during the regular season. And now the Pistons have to think about what they want to do with him long term. Do they want to give him a really big contract Do they want to give him a max deal? I don't know. I'm thinking maybe not. The thing is, you don't want to like overthink him after the playoffs, because he was amazing during the regular season. But it's hard to ignore how poorly he played during the postseason. And so those are a couple of things I think the Pistons have to think about as they head into the offseason. What does it look like to help out Cade Cunningham by getting another ball handler? How do we keep Asar's lack of shooting from destroying our floor spacing? And what's the best thing we can do with Jalen Duren? Do we give him a max deal? Do we try to find another center somewhere? What's the best course of action there? Those are some questions that are going to be facing the Pistons as they head into the offseason. Alright, now let's talk about Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals between the Spurs and the Thunder. This game was absolutely insane. I mean, this legitimately might be the best game I've seen personally. Is up there. I mean, it really was that good. I mean, I'm thinking right now about some of the best playoff games I've witnessed throughout my life. That includes like Game 6 of the, I think, 2013 NBA Finals between the Spurs and the Heat. That was when Ray Allen hit the 3 to force, did that win the game? I think that won the game for the Heat, in that game. And then I think about like 2018 NBA Finals Game 1 where LeBron had like 51 points. It was insane. Warriors end up winning. I also think about 2016 Game 7 of the NBA Finals where the Cavs come back from a 3-1 deficit to beat the Warriors. It's funny. All of the games I'm thinking about that are like the best playoff games I've seen all happen to include LeBron James. And I think this game is up there with those games. I mean, that's how special it was. This game went to double overtime, and the Spurs won 122 to 115. And the first thing I've got to talk about is Victor Wembanyama. I mean, that is the story of the game. Wemby was absolutely electric here. He had 41 points, 24 rebounds. That's insane. And then he had 3 assists to go along with a steal and 3 blocks. And he did all of this on 66.7% true shooting. What a performance from him. Everyone was calling him the best player in the world after this performance. And it's hard to argue with that. I mean, this is the type of performance I was going to say that you expect. You don't really expect this from anyone. But this is the type of performance that you see from guys who are the best player in the world. I mean, Wemby was awesome in every aspect of the game. I mean, he was so good as a scorer, amazing as a rebounder. His defense was spectacular. This was pretty much like a perfect game for Wemby. He got to the free throw line a ton. His free throw shooting was amazing. Hit a huge 3 in overtime that I want to talk about a little bit more in just a second. But this was an absolutely insane game for Wemby. And the Thunder were throwing like a very unique defensive scheme at him. They were putting guards on him away from the basket when he had his back to the basket, which I thought was a unique strategy. And Wemby handled everything perfectly. He was great offensively, while also, doing what we expect from him on the defensive end of the floor. He was awesome. And that 3-pointer to tie the game in overtime was insane. I remember watching that game live. And when he pulled up from like 30 feet, my initial reaction was, there's no way he's actually shooting this ball, right? There was plenty of time left on the shot clock, and he was shooting from the parking lot. And I was like, man, this is an insane shot. And he hit it. And it's rare to see an arena go quiet like that. But that arena was super loud before that moment. And then he hits the 3. and it goes dead silent. It was like the air had gotten ripped out of that arena. It was insane. I haven't seen anything like that in a long time, and that was a ridiculous shot. It was very similar to the shot that Stephen Curry hit during the regular season in 2016 when he hit the shot heard around the world. If y'all were watching basketball back then, you know what I'm talking about. That was an insane shot, and this one was very similar, and it tied the game. I mean, considering the context, the situation, that three is one of the crazier threes I've seen in a long time. It was absolutely insane. Wemby, he was incredible in this game. And if he's going to continue playing like this, the Spurs are going to be really hard to beat. They just are. It's almost impossible to take them down when Wemby is this good on offense and defense. I also wanted to give a huge shout out to Dylan Harper. He's a rookie, but not playing like it. He's been really impressive in these playoffs, and I think sometimes people overrate him a little bit, and I think sometimes people are, hyping him up a little bit too much, and I don't want him to, get too high of expectations early in his career. But in a game like this, yeah, he was very impressive. He had 24 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and 7 steals. He was really good on defense. He got to the rim a lot, was really good as a rim finisher. The playmaking was good. The scoring punch he provided was very necessary because the Spurs did not have De'Aaron Fox. He was out due to injury, and so they were without arguably their second best player. And so that was a big deal, but Dylan Harper stepped up and played extremely well in a very physical and difficult game. There was a video posted after the game showing Stephon Castle walking back to the locker room, and he said it was the hardest game he had ever played, and I believe it. The physicality, the really smart defensive game plans from both teams made this a really tough game to play in, and so I get it when Castle said that. I completely understand, and I am not surprised that he said it. Harper, he was amazing, and the Spurs did a lot of things really well in this game. They did a great job of crashing the offensive glass, and I thought their defense was really good. The way they defended SGA was so creative, and it worked to perfection. What they were doing is they were doubling him a lot, and not only doubling him, but while they were sending two guys at him, they also had a third guy playing really strong, really aggressive help defense, and it gave SGA a lot of trouble. He wasn't horrible in this game, but he had 24 points, 3 rebounds, 12 assists. The lack of scoring efficiency was the problem. He had a true shooting percentage of 44.5%, shot just 7 for 23 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and he was forced to be a playmaker in this game, and that was good. He executed in that role with 12 assists compared to 4 turnovers, but scoring was a big issue for him in this game, and it kept him from being, really impactful. But I will say, he did play really well on defense in this game, because he had 5 steals and a block. He was very active on defense. And a game like this just shows why SGA is arguably the best player in the world. In a game in which he had an off night as a scorer, he stepped up in so many different ways. He provided a lot of playmaking. His defensive activity was really high, and that allowed him to still have a good game. And so, although SGA wasn't good as a scorer, I thought he was really good in all these different areas. And he did come through in big moments. He had some big shots in this game. In the fourth quarter, at the end of the fourth quarter, in the final few minutes, he made some really big plays to send this game to overtime, because the Spurs, they were up by a decent amount in the fourth quarter, and it took the Thunder hitting some big threes to come back. But yeah, SGA, weak game as a scorer, but was pretty impressive in other areas. And then Alex Caruso, he was fantastic, had 31 points off the bench, shot 8 for 14 from 3, and his defense was amazing. He had 2 steals, 2 blocks, and he was super physical on that end of the floor. He was asked to defend Victor Wembanyama a lot, and he handled it really well. He was so good in this game. He was probably the best player for the Thunder. Even though he isn't a primary ball handler, he was so good as a shooter and defender that I think he was the best player for the Thunder in this game. Made so many big plays on defense. I think it was in overtime, the first overtime. At the end, the Spurs tried to throw a lob on the last play, and they had a guy wide open. And honestly, they probably should have scored there. But on the alley-oop, Alex Caruso was able to disrupt the pass and keep the Spurs from scoring. So that was a big play. And the Thunder had some other decent performances. I thought Cason Wallace played well. He had some big moments. He had 8 points, 6 rebounds, 2 steals, made some big threes, which was good. And then Jalen Williams, I almost forgot about him. He played really well. Had some big moments, was really productive with 26 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and a block. Hit some big shots and big moments in this game as well. They really needed his scoring punch. They also, the Thunder, they had some guys that played well, but they also had some guys that really struggled, like Chet. Chet was not very good in this game at all. Wasn't very productive as a scorer, wasn't very aggressive offensively, and I thought on defense, he kind of looked scared at times. And I know that's kind of brutal to say, but his body language wasn't very good on the floor. The Thunder didn't really ask him to defend Victor Wembanyama all that much. I thought that was disappointing, but the lack of physicality, the lack of aggression from him was really disappointing. It was really tough to see. He's got to be a lot better if the Thunder want to win this series, and he can play at a high level. We've seen him play well in these playoffs. He just had an off night, and sometimes that'll happen. But I thought the body language and the lack of aggression, especially when Wemby's going off the way he did, you just can't have that. You can't have that. Chet's he's gotta bring it in game 2. His motor's gotta be a lot higher, a lot stronger. He cannot play the way he did in this game. And he wasn't awful everywhere. He had a steal, 2 blocks, 8 rebounds, made a couple of threes, but the body language was a big issue. The lack of aggression. The underwhelming scoring efficiency. It just was all really bad. He's got to be better. AJ Mitchell's got to be better as well. He's been the Thunder's second leading scorer in these playoffs. He only had 4 points in Game 1. Didn't make a 3. Did have 5 assists and 2 steals. 0 turnovers. But he's got to be much more productive as a scorer moving forward. So I want to see him improve in that area. Lou Dort, he's got to be better. It'll be interesting to see if Isaiah Hartenstein plays much moving forward. He only played 12 minutes in this game, which I don't know if that's too surprising. It's really hard to play 2 bigs, considering the lineups that the Spurs are running. They're running a lot of small ball lineups with Wemby as the single big, and he's so versatile. He can play on the outside, he can play on the perimeter, he can play inside, and so it'll be interesting to see how the Thunder utilize Hartenstein in this series. This may be a case where he just can't really play all that much due to the matchup problems. But that's something I'm going to keep my eye on moving forward. I'm also interested to see what the defensive adjustments from both of these teams are going to look like in Game 2. Because we saw the Spurs be very aggressive with SGA in Game 1, but SGA is so good that they can throw that same scheme at him in Game 2, and he can have 30 points on good efficiency. And so, it'll be interesting to see if the Spurs decide to be really aggressive with him in Game 2. It'll also be interesting to see if the Thunder decide to put Chet Holmgren on Wemby more often. We didn't really see that much in Game 1, but with Wemby going off like he did in this game, I think it would be a good idea for the Thunder to adjust and put Chet on him a lot more in Game 2. But those are some adjustments I'm going to keep my eye on as we move forward in this series. But yeah, that Game 1 was incredible, lots of fun, and I cannot wait for Game 2. This was a very hyped series going into Game 1, and that first game lived up to the hype. It was legendary. Alright, let's close out this episode by talking about Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Knicks and the Cavs. This game actually just ended a couple minutes ago. I'm recording this on Tuesday night. This was a really good game. The Cavs were up for most of it. They were up 48-46 at halftime, but then got out to a 22-point lead at one point in the second half. But golly, that second half was crazy. I do want to focus on the first half, though, first, because I was watching this game very closely. So let's talk about that first half. The Knicks won the first quarter 23-16, but the Cavs went on a run in the second quarter, winning that quarter 32-23 to take the lead at the break. That's when they were up to 48-46 at the half. The Cavs, they had a big-time shooting advantage in the first half. They were shooting 38% from 3 versus 11% from 3 for the Knicks. They also had more offensive rebounds and more free throws in the first two quarters. Donovan Mitchell had a really strong start to this game. At halftime, he had 16 points, 3 rebounds, one assist, 3 steals, and a block on 6 of 9 shooting from the field, and 3 for 5 shooting from 3. Jarrett Allen also had 2 steals and a block in that first half. At halftime, Dean Wade was leading the team in assists. And then Jalen Brunson, he was having a solid performance so far at halftime. And then the second half was a completely different story. The first half was really close with the Cavs leading, and then they went on a huge run in that second half. I'm pulling up the box score so I can see how they performed in that third quarter. So in the third quarter, the Cavs, they outscored the Knicks 35-23. But the fourth quarter was a completely different story. So the Cavs, they were up 22 in the fourth quarter at one point. But the Knicks went on a huge run. They actually outscored the Cavs in that final quarter 32-18. And Jalen Brunson went on a tear in that fourth quarter, hitting big shot after big shot. He also was really good in overtime. He ended the game with 38 points, shooting 15 for 29 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3. He had 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and 3 steals. Hit so many big shots in this game. Another guy who hit a lot of big shots in this game was Mikal Bridges, who had 18 points, shot 7 for 11 from the field, shot 2 for 4 from 3. He was excellent in this game. Also had 2 steals, and it hit some big shots, big threes in this game when the Knicks needed him the most. Josh Hart was really good as a role player in this game. He had 13 points on good efficiency. Also had 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. Anthony Towns didn't have a great game here. Had 7 turnovers compared to 5 assists. The playmaking just a little bit shaky in this game. Did have some big plays on defense. He had a big block, I believe, in overtime. It might have been at the end of the fourth quarter. He blocked a shot on a play where the Cavs were trying to take the lead late in the game. So he had that play, and then, had the steal, the block, but just wasn't efficient as a scorer. Didn't provide much as a shooter in this game, and turned the ball over too much. OG Anunoby, he's been great throughout the playoffs, but was a little bit quiet in this game, shooting just 2 for 9 from the field while scoring 13 points. The star of the show really was Jalen Brunson. He was absolutely incredible in this game. In the Cavs, they weren't bad in this game. They just fell apart in that second half, specifically in the fourth quarter and overtime. Their defense fell apart. Donovan Mitchell played really well. I mean, he had 29 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Also had 6 steals and a block. He was absolutely incredible on defense. Shot 4 for 11 from 3. The shot making was great. He was just really efficient as a scorer in this game. Evan Mobley had some nice moments. He was great as a rebounder. That was impressive. Had a few assists, blocked 3 shots. And then Jarrett Allen, he was solid as well with 10 points of his own, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and a block. James Harden had a pretty disappointing game here, I will say. He's got to be a lot better offensively if the Cavs want to win this series. He had 15 points, but shot just 5 for 16 from the field. He had 4 rebounds, 3 assists, turned the ball over 6 times. Now, he did have a steal and a block, but the turnovers, the inefficient scoring, that was a big problem. And I did want to talk about one play from late in this game. I think this was the last play of regulation. The Cavs had a chance to potentially take the lead, I believe, and they gave James Harden the ball. Took the ball out of Donovan Mitchell's hands for that final possession. And they let James Harden operate, and I thought that was a huge mistake. I don't know why you would want to take the ball out of Donovan Mitchell's hands, considering he was having a pretty good game, and James Harden wasn't. And Donovan Mitchell is simply the better player. He's the better scorer, the better shot maker. I just did not understand that decision whatsoever. And the Cavs obviously did not end up scoring on that play, and the game went to overtime, where the Knicks outscored the Cavs 14-3 in that overtime period, and the Knicks walk away with the victory in Game 1. Huge comeback, huge fourth quarter and overtime performance from the Knicks. They were just absolutely incredible on defense and made a lot of huge shots. It was a wild game, lots of fun. Both this game and Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals were spectacular. And yeah, the conference finals, they have gotten off to a hot start. It looks like we are in for a treat here with these conference finals matchups, and I can't wait to see what we have in store, throughout the rest of these 2 series. But those are my thoughts on the playoffs recently. We've had a lot of interesting things happening in this postseason recently. These playoffs have been a lot of fun. But those are my thoughts on the Pistons, them losing in the second round, where they're going to go from here. Spurs Thunder, Game 1, as well as Knicks Cavs, Game 1. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you're listening to this on, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast, please leave a review. That would help me out as well. That's all we have for today's episode. Hope y'all enjoyed it, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.